is the restructure. We've been here before, like Deja Vu is an annual dog biscuit, a clock.
My name's McCabe. I'm a poet from Liverpool, as you may have guessed by the accent. I've been in London 7 years. Published my first book, The Hutton Inquiry, in 2005, and my second book in 2008 last year called Zeppelins. I'm sometimes cast as a political poet because I write about political things, but I don't see myself as a protest poet in that sense, trying to change things. I'm just interested in observations. I'm interested in uses of language, including political and corrupt misuses of language.
And so the restructure says this is the finger food with raw hypnol dip, and next to that the urban carcass with citrus and amphetamines, a wren that blings, a swift that head spins. I don't want to risk the commute. I feel much better, but it could finish me off. Each child is fitted with earplugs to make phonetic tasks more of a challenge. Then the restructure changes eyes with sugar cubes to watch the stars dissolve.
Hutton Inquiry was a kind of trigger for a lot of this kind of thing that I'm interested in, because the slightest variation in a statement made the greatest difference. For example, you know, in the first draft of the declaration to go to war, the government said weapons of mass destruction may be used in 45 minutes, and that became can't be used. And of course, poets all the time play about with the most subtle nuances of languages, and it's a form of play, really, to get an effect on the person who's listening.
Five-fingered bars strobe white prisms from brick, inversion of God's ministry, bounces on ministers, frisks you in a soul search, finds an in-pocket novel, original Penguin classic, considers refusing you entry, presumes you're no trouble, drunken bookish one. You put your soul in the cloakroom, the ticket says 72, there are only 7 other people.
I'm also interested in listening to people, and often when they don't know I'm listening. So the latest thing I'm writing is a kind of loosely futuristic poem about the recession, and it involves just travelling on buses and tubes around London and listening to what people are saying and the advice that they give to each other, and using a technique probably quite similar to this wall behind you, where things are cut and pasted over each other to create something which is new and artistic and interesting. I'm fascinated by all uses of language, and of course, like, you know, young people using text language for me is a really creative thing to do. You know, there is, if you think about Shakespeare, for example, there was no dictionary at the time he wrote, and he used and invented thousands and thousands of words because he could, because there was no such thing as standard English. And that's exactly what young people are doing when they text each other. It's also about territorialism, if you like, as well, and I'm familiar with that, being from Liverpool, Scouse dialect, and kind of the language I used with my mates and still do when I go home. It's about kind of who you include and who you allow to overhear.
Like drunk or sober, I'm still your father, like a man walks a dog, a scarecrow in a field of flax, like your love-worn eyes of fresh brewed Tetley, like it's your life's work and you've got to believe in it, like all those break-ins at the youth courts, like upturned boats in a burned out church, like banks sell loan because new cars make a life, like
I'm interested in a pace that exists, like broadband. You know, I do think we were talking about like younger people using text language before. I do think our brains have changed over the last 10-15 years due to things like the internet and broadband, where you click a page, you just adapt to that page straight away. I mean, cinema did a lot to change that way of thinking, but it's what the brain wants actually. The brain is quite capable of going bang, bang, bang to something completely new. A lot of poetry is afraid of missing out the gaps between the scenes. And those explanations between scenes or between web pages aren't needed. The brain doesn't need it. And when you start putting them in, people switch off because it's really slow and really boring, and slows down the whole thing.
At the bar, the Stanley flame of his self-belief cuts and singes a leaf in Bunsen blue, distinctly not a worker, just a well-read punk peasant. Keeps his secrets like a travel pack of biscuits in his breast pocket. Never.
For me, this is the release, because if you take the spoken overheard elements that work their way into my poems, by speaking those elements at events, they're suddenly back almost to where they were before. You know, it's kind of, you know, I'm not sure most of the people would be happy about it, but you know, they're becoming a work of art. So it's, you know, it's a different thing altogether. but also the way I work. I only write things down at the last minute. I carry things around in my head, the overheard things and images and bits of text I've picked up when they start to work as a poem. And through that process, they get written down before I forget them. But if I could just remember them all without having to write them down, then I probably would write them all down.